My name is Monika Lukowska. I'm an artist originally from Poland, but now I've been based here in Perth for 11 years. I started, my whole journey with art and printmaking when I studied in Poland, in Wrocław, in the Academy of Fine Arts and Design. And my major at the time was lithography. So I was trained in that very original, means of printmaking, working with lithography stone, working on editions. Around the time that I was about to graduate, there was that trend or interest in combining digital and traditional means of printmaking. So this is where my interest with digital technologies kind of started. And this is what I worked towards my graduation, towards my master's degree in Poland, and seeking the ways of how I can combine the aesthetics of lithography, the very unique marks, with digital prints and my photography, and how I can also expand beyond just the 2D print, but also thinking about installation or larger format with digital printmaking allowed. After I graduated in Poland, the project that I've done at that time, there was an installation part, and other part of that was prints on metal, so like a UV print on metal, and that project won the Minister of Culture and National Heritage Award for the best graduates. It was a big effort, but I was really, really pleased with how the work developed, and it also created a new trajectory for my practice at the time. So moving away from just working with the press, but also experimenting with new materials, new techniques, and new mediums still within the print medium. After that, I did my Master of Fine Arts in the United States. I studied for 2 years in San Francisco Art Institute. The approach that we had there was no matter what, technique you're working on, it was more about the exploration of the concept. And this is where kind of my interest in working with landscape, and it can be like a natural landscape, but also urban landscape, was really more formed. I discovered that as being something that I wanted to pursue and investigate more. So within these 2 years, again, it was looking at different means of print and what print can do, but also how it can encapsulate that experience of place that we have and that we experience as our everyday basis, which is so multisensorial. So what are the possibilities of the print in evocating that experiences? After that time there, I came to Australia to do my PhD. So I started in 2015 at Curtin University. This was basically following up on my interest in place. So my PhD was about place, materiality of place, and our experience, and working within the print techniques. Interestingly, I kind of took the whole loop and I started working back with lithography, which was like a big jump from working with all these digital technologies and the mediums, and then doing my PhD in a very, I would say, traditional way. But I guess this was something that really was reflective of the process and reflective of the themes that I wanted to convey in my work. So I did the PhD, which was a great time to kind of really delve deeper into my practice, see what I'm really interested in, get more of that conceptual framework, more of, theoretical framework for my work, but also see where I can take my practice further. After I graduated, I think it was 2018, I stayed with the theme of landscape, so different approaches to landscape, different elements of landscape kind of that caught my interest, working with that, and continuing being involved here and exhibiting in both here in Australia, but also overseas, so trying to maintain those relationships that I built throughout my studies. Print medium is the one that really aligns with my practice the most. Printmaking is so versatile, you can work as digital print, so here this kind of the approach that combines all these different elements, so you would have scans of lithography, dry point, etchings, and then digital prints combined with photographs, but also working with woodcut, working with textures, working with some more traditional means. It really allows this wider exploration of materials and how we can convey that experience that we're having in place that I'm so interested in exploring in my work. So one advice and something that worked for me was to form relationships and really value the relationships that you're developing throughout your studies, either be with your peers or your lecturers or people that you meet outside, because this will be most likely people that you'll be working on. Because I find as an artist, it's very difficult to work by yourself and work alone, because it can be I think, quite isolating if you're just in your studio, and especially after you graduate, you don't really have the people to discuss your work with. So I find maintaining these relationships is something that really helps me in my practice, my career, and I still have those connections that I developed during my PhD, and I think those are like definitely really, really valuable for how I progress now with my work. Another thing is to go out and to go see as much as you can, to go see exhibitions, to meet people, because this is how you get exposed to different work, but also to different people's views, different perspectives, and what can you do in your practice, like how can inform your practice. But seeing work in flesh, in real life, is very different to seeing it on your phone. So definitely going out there. And I think not being afraid to apply, because the amount of rejections that you'll get is going to be big. And I just got rejected from so many things this year, which is part of the process. But I feel like often there is that fear of rejection, so people don't apply on like, oh, there's a lot of work to do this grant, I'm not going to apply, I'm not going to apply for this exhibition. But unless you try, until you try, you won't know. So the more you do it, the better you become. But also, you eventually will find your venues, you will find places that your work fits in, and you feel like, oh, this is something that I can pursue further. But you have to make that effort initially, which I think is really, really important. So some of the exhibitions, like the most challenging or the most exciting, one that I still remember, and like probably one of the most important one that I had, was one for my master's degree back in Poland, because I had to hang installation of, I think it was 16 hanging pieces of plexiglass hanging from the ceiling, and the ceiling was not flat, the ceiling was like that, the old European ceilings, and they had to all hang evenly, and the projection had to go through it. So there was a lot of technical challenges, but I think after that I could do anything. Once you solve all those technical difficulties, it gets much easier. Some of the shows that, I guess, projects that I've been involved here in Australia, one of them was, it's called Transmedial, that my friend Sarah Robinson and I have been working for a few years. And it started as this idea of actually bringing international printmaking artists here to Australia. And we had this idea, like, why don't we showcase trends and what's happening around the world in Australia. And it was a great project, but COVID happened during the time. So those came with all new challenges. We got the work, we didn't get the artists to come because of COVID, but we still managed to do the symposium. People participated online. So even though I didn't have the work there, the value of curating that show and developing this relationship was tremendous at the time. And then we continue with that project to explore how technology affects printmaking. So printmaking as a medium is being affected by that emergence of new technologies. So our latest exhibition was working with Gen AI, so using Gen AI as a collaborator in the piece. And we were prompting it based on like different printmaking concepts to see how it can visually translate the prompts, which was kind of surprising and interesting. And it kind of showed the limitations, challenges, but also possibilities of how AI can be used in the process. So this work was exhibited in Melbourne twice and here once in Perth. I think it's really relevant, especially now, because AI is here to stay with us. So the question of like, where do we use it as an artist? What are the ethical concerns involved in? So this was quite an interesting experiment and engaging in your practice. And it's a continuing project, so we will definitely develop it further and look at the different iteration of that work. So the whole, I guess the Transmedial is the whole project that we've been working on for years, but it has a different iteration. And again, working together, I think it makes it much more enjoyable, because you can bounce ideas of each other, but you can involve other artists. And also I feel like that you grew as an artist yourself. This work was from the project that we done in Collie. So it was 7 artists. It was part of the exhibition called 7 Forms, where we looked at cities in transitions. And the reason why I was particularly interested in it, because I'm coming from a mining city back in Poland, which I guess is still in transition. People cannot give coal away completely. We looked at Collie and how Collie as a town in Western Australia is so reliant on the mines. When we're shifting away from that, how the landscape will change, how the identity of the town will change. So this was a project where we would travel down to Collie, we would engage with the place in many different ways, and find the response, like how artists interpret that changes over time. So this is one of the work that was at the exhibition, and this represents the open pit. And as I say, kind of the way it was created, like I took the photographs, but then I combined a lot of the marks that were taken on site. So like traditionally take marks through frottage or drawings, and then overlap them together to kind of representative of the whole place. I wouldn't call myself a full-time artist because this is something that I never managed to myself, but I definitely, ever since I graduated, I'm continuing practice. So I always make sure that I maintain my practice and work on the projects, which is not the easiest thing to do because now I also work full-time at the university, and finding time for the projects. And I think it's easier if you have few projects going on and you're working towards something. So let's say you set yourself a deadline that you're working towards an exhibition or toward a conference or towards something that you have to actually show your work. It really helps because it gives us some discipline to be like, okay, I have to do the work. Before I was working full-time, I was engaged a lot in community workshops. So I did teach a lot of printmaking workshops, which I actually found it was a great way to also stimulate my own practice, because first of all, I had to go book a studio and do the workshop. It required me to do a bit of prep, connecting with creative people and having the conversation about the practice. So that was a great way also for me when I came to Australia and I started to do this workshop to get into the community and like get to know community. This is how I kind of started to build it up. So I'm now lucky that I have a press. So this was like one of my biggest dreams, is to actually have a press at home, because even if I have a small amount of time, I can still come and experiment here. So I have all the setup for the etching press, and even though I don't work that much with etching, but I do a lot of woodcuts, dry points, paper lithography, which this press allows me to do. Now I'm at the moment that I'm just experimenting a lot, like trying different ideas, because I got interested into laser cutting into wood and translating different textures of the landscape and how the landscape can be translated into more of those abstract images that actually derive from 3D scans of the landscape. As you progress as an artist and you already have the different tools on your belt and you know different techniques and you understand how things work, I think to move forward is important to explore concept and what your work is really about. So what is that you wanted to convey through your work? And I guess it's not as much important as what the theme is, because you can be interested in anything really. It's more how much you know about it, so how much you're investing in developing this concept and understanding of the concept. And I think a lot of that understanding comes from our lived experiences and actually being involved. Let's say if I'm interested in landscape, spend a lot of time out there in the landscape to actually experiencing it, being in there, even though I would not maybe create an artwork from there, but I was still getting that expansion knowledge that allowed me to then inform my work. So this is one of the way of like being engaged with whatever concept. The broader knowledge you can get, the better. Often artists, and my students as well, they ask me like, why do I have to read? Why do I have to write? Why do I have to do all of that? But I think this is what differentiates from just, maybe doing workshops and doing something for fun, and like from then taking the next step further and actually being able to talk about your practice, to articulate about your practice and engage in this dialogue and the conversation, and thinking like, okay, where is my practice sits within this contemporary context, when I can see myself as an artist in the next 3 years? What else do I need to work on? Because for artists, it should be 99% research and just 1% of actually execution of the work, for the work to have a meaning and actually mean something. So this was something that I definitely took on board and tried to implement in my work as well.